Okay, at this point in time, we've come to the public commentary section of our meeting. Anybody who has any comments and or questions of the Township Committee on any item are welcome to step up to the microphone.
Hi, thank you very much. My name is Kathleen Peacock. I live at 613 Van Buren Road.
Good evening.
Thank you. The reason why I wanted to speak this evening is I'm concerned about the development on Van Buren Road. It's a major subdivision of 26 Van Buren Road, which is now known as Andrea Lane. We actually moved into our property after this subdivision was approved. From what I understand, a lot of discussion and planning went into this in order to make sure that the environs around Morristown Township and also Harding were preserved for the neighbors of Harding and Morris Township. I've got three concerns. I'm going to try to keep these brief and outlined and hopefully to the point for you to follow this. And I think primarily what I'm concerned about is there seem to be some major deviations on the site that are more than minor field changes. A number of things that I'm going to talk about. First of all, there are 4 lots. The last lot has been regraded about 7 feet plus higher. There have been 8 trees that were removed from one of the lots that did not have approval to be approved. They were required to stay. There is a 20-foot buffer that's supposed to go along the bottom of all of the properties and on the house 3 Andrea Lane that's currently occupied. The tree buffer was not planted to the regulation tree height as specified in the resolutions. The number of trees planted were not in accordance with the resolution. A lot of the trees have died, and despite all of the resolutions and the buffers, a certificate of occupancy was granted even though these things were not complied with. The first thing I'm going to talk about briefly is the high grade on the property at the end. The property seems to be graded about 7 feet high. And what I observed was that when the foundation was going in, the foundation block was at least 7 feet high above the current ground level, or that was the current grade that the existing house was on before it was removed. I went into the code enforcement office and I spoke to a Dave Hansen about this because I was very concerned about what was going on with this development, not only with the highness of this foundation, but also the number of trees that had been completely leveled between the existing house and the 2 lots going up, which were not in accordance with anything I had seen in the resolutions and certainly the spirit in which the planning board had approved this major subdivision. Mr. Hansen represented to me that he also noted that the foundation was built 7 feet higher. He went to talk to the builder who told him, yes, he did build it 7 feet higher because he was having trouble moving all of the dirt off the site. And because he was having trouble moving all the dirt off the site, they've now put the house up 7 feet higher from what the original grade was, from what I can tell. And they've taken the extra dirt that should have been removed and they filled around the house and built the house up. I find this disturbing for several reasons. First of all, I think it's an outrageous regrade of the surrounding area. That seems to me to be a major deviation and not just a simple field change. And I would think if you're going to change the grade that much, that something like that should go back to the planning board for consideration, given the sensitivity of that particular Van Buren Road development. So I was finding this all really disturbing and upsetting, obviously. And another point too, which concerned me, is that my property, as well as 2 of my neighbors, sit below this development. From what I understand in talking to Mr. Slate, there's been a lot of concern about runoff from these properties down into the Van Buren Road properties. This was a major deviation that was agreed on site by the code enforcement officer. I have no idea whether or not when he allowed this major regrade, whether or not they took into account how the runoff was going to affect the Morris Township and Harding residents sitting below this. And I'm really concerned about this. And that, well, it just frazzles me a little bit, to be honest, because I just want to make sure that, you know, what everybody agreed on and worked so hard to agree is being enforced properly. And I don't understand why a builder having trouble moving dirt off the site is any of concern to a code enforcement officer. In my opinion, it's like, okay, if you're having trouble, then you need to go back to the planning board and see if they'll approve a regrade, and we need to make sure the engineering is right. So once you leave the site, we don't cause problems for Morris Township and Harding residents who will be subject to the runoff. Another point I wanted to talk about was tree removal on the lot in the middle. There were 8 large trees that were required to stay in the original board resolutions that the builder removed without permission. And from what I understand, the builder said that, well, there were other trees you told me I could take down, but I left those. And, you know, he's leaving little scrappy trees and taking down big, huge trees. You know, I don't think these things are subject for negotiation after the fact. And I don't understand why that's acceptable. I'm also concerned that this buffer of trees that's required to be planted is indeed planted. I have talked to Mr. Slade about this point. He's been very helpful with that. He sent an inspection officer out to take a look at the tree buffer and concluded, as I did, that the trees weren't the height that they were specified, that everybody agreed to. A lot were dead, a lot needed to be replanted, and that I understand a letter was going out to the builder, and Mr. Hansen said it went out a couple of weeks ago telling him he needed to comply and change these different things. Now that house is occupied, I don't know what the effect is going to be, but furthermore, with the tree, with the house that's at the end, if you regrade it up 7 feet higher plus than what the original grade was supposed to be, the tree buffer is not going to buffer anything, is it? If it's put up really high like that, which then begs the question, well, hang on a minute, you know, what's really going on? And I would like some help and advice on what to do, because I'm just a little bit concerned and frazzled that everyone took so much time trying to make sure that this development was right and sensitive to the environment of Van Buren Road, and it seems like the code's not being enforced, and I'm concerned.
Sure, thank you for your comments.
Sure.
I believe, Mr. Quinn, this is coming back before the planning board?
I had previously conversations with Mr. Slade on that. I know that the concerns were addressed. No CCOs are going to be issued for the 3 other properties that are the new properties.
Okay.
Until they meet all of the requirements that were put forth in the planning board resolutions for this. Mr. Slade did respond. I don't know if it was your husband or another resident close by who had written a letter with some concerns. Yeah,
that's another resident. He couldn't be here this evening.
Okay. But it was my understanding that they were going to bring them back before the planning board to address the concerns with the site.
Okay, and what about the fact that there's been a major deviation on the grading on site?
I'm not familiar with that concern, so I would have to check with Mr. Slate in the morning.
Okay, and so can you please explain to me what the procedure is going to be? What are you going to do now that you have this information?
I'm going to follow up with Mr. Slate on that and determine if they have done the inspection, if they verify that there is a major deviation. And in those cases, they're usually brought back in before the planning board to address those.
Okay, and then does work continue on the site while this is still going on?
Unless they're issued a stop work order.
Okay, and what causes a stop work order to be issued?
Our building department would take a look at that, and if something was not being done to code, then a stop work order could be issued.
Okay, and what's the timeline for that, please? Do you know?
It all depends on what their investigation finds. Each situation is different. I can't tell you it's going to be 24 hours or 48 hours. They'd have to take a look at it, to, verify the complaint. If the complaint is substantiated, then they would issue a stop work order.
Okay, I mean, I think, all right, so, because it's very concerning to me that you have a code enforcement officer that's taking the word of the builder and changing things substantially out in the site from what everybody agreed on.
That is your opinion, though?
That is my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my opinion.
Right, that's,
And it's based
we
on
have
the
to-
representation he gave me.
Well, but we have to speak to the engineering department and find out what the information is, the decision that they made. I don't
Okay.
have that information here with me.
Okay, well, I respectfully request that you take a look at the original topography of what that grade was on the site and what the grade is now. I mean, can you do that, or do you need a letter from me? to do
That wouldn't be this body, okay?
Okay.
Your best bet is to set up a meeting with Mr. Slate, and I think Mr. Quinn can help kind of broker that meeting.
Okay.
That's really the best person to talk to. Mr. Quinn, as township administrator, wouldn't be able to get into the details that you're looking for at this point.
Okay, so it comes down to Mr. Slade, you doing an investigation.
Right, and if it's not in compliance with the resolutions that came out of the planning board approvals, it would have to go back before the planning board.
Okay. All right. So what are my next steps then?
Have you met with Mr. Slade one-on-one?
I've met with Mr. Slade on the tree issues. I have not met with Mr. Slade on this latest regrading issue. I found out about that on Thursday.
Why don't we
He
set up
could
a-
not see me after I found this out because he was in a meeting.
Okay. Why don't we set up a meeting for you to come in and address the
Okay.
concerns, and I may set it up with some other professionals also.
Okay, no, that's fine. So should I email you my contact information
That
or?
would be terrific.
Okay. Do you have a card? Thank you.
Okay.
Right, all right.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else from the public care to be heard?
Good evening, Kathy Wilson, 20 Beechwood Drive. I wanted to say that I appreciated the forum last night, the mayor's forum, League of Women Voters. I thought it was very informative. It's very interesting. I find it interesting the different forms of government that are here in New Jersey. For anyone who's interested in that, that's something to look at. I've had the experience from doing research for the TV initiative of attending some of these meetings that have different forms of government. So anyway, that's just one comment on that. But one thing that came out from that forum last night, talking about communication, and Mr. Mancuso made a comment about, you said that cell phones were available on the website. Am I correct on that? That's
On the website.
The township committee members, so.
Our cell phone numbers.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Our
That
cell phone numbers are on the website.
they are, but because I thought,
I don't know if they are.
I think it's a really good idea.
They used to
They're on
be.
our business cards.
The main number is there, I don't think
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was a great idea. I think it does send a signal of really open communication. And I've been on the website many times. I've never noticed it, but I did look. I didn't see it. And so I just wanted to ask. So basically it's on cards, but not on the
But I
website.
thought they were cats, so I misspoke. But-
Yeah, no, I had a feeling you might not know that, but I didn't know it either. Anyway, I appreciated the forum. It was very informative. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public care to be heard?
Move we close the public portion, Mr. Mayor.
Second.